Hey friends, this is Mark Suroviec, host of the Workplace Solutions podcast, inviting you to discover the joy of work. All right, Rhonda, I think we're finally good. How you feeling?
I'm feeling good now that we got everything together. We're good.
So you're not applying for a role as an IT specialist anytime soon?
Mark, how long have you known me? Why would you even ask that question?
Oh, that's hilarious. So we're having some technical difficulties, but I think we're set. And if the audio sounds weird, we apologize ahead of time. But I think we figured it out.
I think we did too, and I'm so excited. I just have to say that.
Yeah, I'm proud of you, Rhonda. You are learning and growing.
Thank you so much, Mark.
Oh, man. Yeah, we're doing a podcast today, and we're using a new system again and trying this out over Zoom and seeing how that plays out. And we'll do our best as we figure it out along the way. So, Rhonda, what are we talking about today? Do you have the notes pulled up?
Yeah, I do. As a matter of fact, look, I got one thing together here. We're calling this a win.
As long as you have your life pulled together, I don't care whether you ever figure out technology.
I have never pulled my life together. They're all on the same plane, and I'm still enjoying it. So there you go.
I'll take it. I'm sorry. I didn't. We're out of sync. Let's try this again. Hey, Rhonda, what are we talking about today?
We are talking about how to delegate. Big topic, don't you think? Yeah, and some of the specific things we're going to be talking about is what is the biggest mistake managers make when they're delegating a task or project? And how can I clearly communicate my expectations? That's a huge one, actually. And lastly, we're going to be talking about what are the key principles to get delegating effectively. Big subject here this morning.
Absolutely.
Obviously, do not delegate any IT projects to me again, Mark.
I was going to make a joke that since today's episode is delegating, I'm just going to have you do the entire podcast. So, yeah. Including the editing. So,
good luck with that, buddy.
Oh, man. It's time for a question of the day. We're trying to reframe that classic word of icebreaker. This is going to be an underhanded softball pitch you should hit out of the park. So, Rhonda, what is something that brings you joy?
Oh, you know what that is. That is my granddaughter, Avery. She is the best. She just keeps me moving, keeps me young, keeps me laughing, hits all the buttons like, ooh, girl, what's up with that? And she's my joy. So yeah, thanks.
How old is Avery?
Avery is 3. She's my best friend. She is. She is. That's joy. That's pure joy.
For me, I'm going to go with seeing children have a home. So my wife and I were foster parents, and we ended up adopting our third placement, Lucy. And it brings me joy when I see families reunited and children having a forever family. So that's a big deal to us and to me. And so I just like that kind of stuff will make me start crying in the middle of the episode. So we'll.
I love that, Mark. I love your heart in that. I think we should do something else and just play with kids. I mean, I think that could be so much fun.
We can put Avery and Lucy and Peggy on an episode. That'd be a lot of fun.
That would be amazing. That would be amazing. And it has to be Zoom where you can see them too.
Yes. She'll listen to the podcast from time. Well, I'll make her listen to the podcast from time to time, and she'll tell me what I should have done right and wrong. And she's 9. So
yeah, I love your Peggy. Your Peggy's a smart little cookie there. I like her.
She is.
So yeah, I'm all down for that. We'll get the kids on.
Let's actually get started and tell us our topic one more time.
How to delegate. And don't delegate to your children unless you're ready to follow up.
All right. So before we start, we're going to put out a statement, which was a quote from David Lilly on episode 15, Key Habits for Managers. And he said, a manager or he said we, but or blah, blah. A manager's job is not to get results. It's to get results through other people. And so that's a key principle as we go into this topic of delegation, that a manager is not primarily responsible for their own results, but the results of other people. Therefore, one of those vehicles that they have to get those results is through delegation. So Rhonda, we're going to hyper-focus on this question of solving the problem of the mistakes that managers make when they delegate. So without reading ahead of the notes, what do you think is the most prominent mistake or a big mistake that managers make when they delegate?
First of all, let me say that I think David Lilly is brilliant, and he's right on with that quote. Absolutely right on. And I would say that the biggest mistake is, and I didn't read ahead of my notes, is not knowing what you're going to delegate, like not having the full picture of what you're going to delegate. Can I give a second part to this question?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is not knowing who you're going to delegate to. Do they have the talent that you need? That is what I would say. So knowing yourself and knowing your people.
That's good. That is true. And it's not what I would say is the biggest mistake, but it is definitely involved in that. So I kind of set you up to fail. Only one answer. That's not good facilitation. So don't follow my behaviors on this one. I need to figure out a better way to do that if I'm going to give the real answer. And when I say real answer, that's obviously a matter of opinion, but I think there's a body of evidence that would support this concept. Most managers, the primary mistake they make when they delegate is they do not delegate a level of authority to go with the task or with the project. So the employee knows what to do, but not how to do it or what boundaries they are working in. And so without this, they are left to guess, what level of authority do I have to carry out this task? How do I do this? What boundaries do I have? What expectations does my boss have? What decisions can I make? What decisions can I not make? What can I spend? How much time should I devote on this? How do I know if I'm successful? And you get this paralysis or just this guessing game that happens when you don't know what is the lane that you should be operating in. Thoughts on that so far?
That's definitely being set up for failure.
Yeah.
Most definitely. Mm-hmm.
Yep. So I think of a time where I did this very poorly. I was delegating a task to do some research, and it involved going to Home Depot and purchasing some things, and my employee came back with like $20 worth of stuff. It wasn't enough to do the thing that I had asked her to, but I never told her what are the boundaries that you can spend in. So she was very conservative on that, because I never said my expectation that you spend, $400 or whatever that number is. The number doesn't matter here. The thing that I did not make it clear, and then because I didn't make it clear, it made her uncomfortable, and that work had to be redone because I didn't have my expectations clear to her. And I remember that moment because I was just like, oh, yeah, you could have spent way more money and done a better job at this. And she didn't know because I didn't make it clear.
That's a hard one to do. Mm-hmm. Yeah. The clarity is important when you're delegating. That's very important. I remember way back in the day when I was a property manager, I wanted to build a fireplace, not like just a little cook area. I wanted a whole fireplace, and I gave the number to my maintenance supervisor, and I said, "This is what we have for this number," but I never gave a clear vision of what I wanted in that. And what I got was not even close. We spent all the budget money, but it wasn't. And that was my lack of clarification on what I really wanted that to look like. Because I thought he could read my mind. Isn't that amazing? I mean, oh my gosh. So yeah, we had a product, but it worked, but it wasn't the vision that I had for that area.
Yeah. And my wife can't read my mind yet, so if she can't, then the people I'm leading certainly can't.
Isn't that amazing?
I'm still crossing my fingers that one day.
And when it happens, you're going to go, no.
She does surprise me from time to time. Be like that's. She's very observant.
That's creepy.
she's very observant. So I try really hard to just be surprising sometimes. And even that, she's like, yeah, you're going to do this. I'm like, what? Before we get as sidetracked as we did the last time Rhonda and I hung out, let's get back on task. So what we're going to do today is present the workplace solutions levels of delegation. So our answer to this topic of not delegating proper authority with the task and project is to have a rubric that the supervisor and direct report both understand and both use. Our levels of delegation is not that unique or profound. There's plenty of them out there. If you Google it, and you'll come across Michael Hyatt's and Stephen Covey's, and they're great. So if you already have one or you already use somebody else's, we're not saying you need to switch to ours. We do think that the way we present the levels of delegation kind of simplifies the concept, so you don't need an MBA to understand it. But if you have one, use it. If you don't have one, listen to ours, and we hope that we take the awkward and unsurety away so that you're never having people come to you and, yeah, that wasn't what I wanted, go do it again. Or have that experience as a direct report. If your boss doesn't give you the level of authority, then you can ask and frame this for them. Our hope is that even if you're a direct report and your supervisor doesn't adopt this rubric, you can still have questions to ask them. And if you're a supervisor, this is something you want to communicate, even if you use other words and other terms. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter as much whether you use our words and terms as that the employee and the supervisor understand the same language.
Mm-hmm. I think that's the big key right there. Mm-hmm. And it saves money too. You haven't lost a lot. Yeah, I like this. Good job.
So we're going to go through 5 levels. All right. And we've put a 1-word descriptor for each level. And we also have a statement that is the summary of what the manager is thinking. The 1-word summary is from the perspective of the employee, because this is the primary thing you are asking the employee to do. So the levels are named in terms of the employee action. We'll do a manager statement of what the manager's thinking or expecting, and we'll have some use cases as well. Sound good?
Nice. Yeah, perfect.
Okay. Level 1, this is the first level of delegation. When folks first try to delegate, this is usually what they do, and you'll see later why that can be exhausting if that's only what you do. But level 1 we call duplicate. And the reason we call it duplicate, the manager statement is do exactly as I ask. So the manager is being very clear, very literal, do this, this, and this in this order, this way. And you are really taking all of the thinking out of the equation. And this isn't a bad thing. It just has to be with the right audience and the right situation. You have a new employee that doesn't have the experience or knowledge to do the thing that you're asking them to do. Things that are procedural or have strict compliance. OSHA or IRS requires you to do X in a certain way, and there's no deviation from that. So if I'm asking you to do this, you have to do it exactly this way. And when your staff are untrained in a certain area, they don't know. One of the ways you train them is you show them how, and you do this, 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 and this. So it's saying, this thing that I used to do, you're going to do, but you're going to do it exactly this way, exactly as I ask. Any questions on level 1?
That could be just the foundation too, like you're talking about new people coming in, or I've gone to a different department. So duplication can either be a personality flaw or it can be a growth experience for somebody that's new. Yeah, I like that. I like that, Mark.
Yeah. Level 2, we call report. So the manager statement is, tell me what you know, or show me what you know. An example of this would be, go research this topic, write me a report on that topic, and bring it back to me. And then in this case, the manager makes the decision. I'll go ahead and go straight into level 3 because we kind of need to compare those two. Level 3 is recommend. So level 2 is report. Level 3 is recommend. So the manager statement in level 3 is, tell me what you know and recommend a course of action. So in level 2, tell me what you know. Level 3, tell me what you know and recommend a course of action. They could be doing a similar thing, but you're asking them to give their opinion, give their recommendation, and you're tapping into their brain power, their expertise, and so on. And we'll talk more about this later, but as you go through each level, one of the key principles is that the more competence and capacity that your people have, the more authority you should give them. So we're going to offer a little warning here. I was doing a supervisor training recently, and after presenting this, somebody asked me about level 2. It's like, well, why would you have people do something like do work and not give their opinion or not give their recommendation? Isn't that demoralizing? And the answer is, it absolutely can be. This is actually my least favorite on here. I debated on whether to include it on the levels of delegation at all, and I chose to keep it on there, not because I think this is always useful, but because this is, in the other models, this is a pretty common stage, and so I want to highlight that idea. My warning or my caution is, if you have engaged, motivated, capable people, level 2 is soul crushing.
Yes, it is.
And what they'll hear from your actions, not your words, but your actions, is you don't respect, value, or trust me enough to make recommendations when appropriate. There's an old Truett Cathy quote, when you hire a set of hands, you get a free brain. And level 2 ignores this. So that being said, is there a use case for this? Sure. It's when the employee does not have the capacity or motivation to make a recommendation. If they are untrained or just don't care about not their job, but the task that you're doing, there's plenty of things you can ask somebody to do where they'll do it and it'll feel like busy work. They don't care between the choices. That's really where this is being used. But still, it's not something that we're doing all the time.
Yeah, I would try to stay away from that one as much as possible. If you're trying to build a team, that's going to work. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, so I keep that one on there. You might have employees that are not highly motivated or not highly engaged, and you need to know what level of authority to give them when you delegate. So we talked about level 3. A key thing to remember in recommend, tell me what you know, and recommend a course of action, is that you don't have to agree with the recommendation. You don't have to do it. You can absolutely decide to do something different. So we're talking about level 3, recommend. So you, as the supervisor, you do not have to do the thing that they've recommended. Here's the key thing we want you to think about, though. If you don't, you should probably give a reason why. And it doesn't have to necessarily be specific. There's politics in the organization that would not allow that to happen. That's a reason. That's fine. Or I know more about what's going on in this situation than you do, so I hear you, and I'm going to choose to go in a different direction. So you don't have to agree with them. You don't have to do what they do. But your employee, because they've made a recommendation, you owe it to them to discuss that recommendation. And if you don't do it, tell them and give them at least a reason why that isn't bullcrap. So
yes, agreed. Because if you talk about a lack of motivation, maybe in level 2, that'll throw me back to level 2 because I spent all this time. I have a recommendation, and then I don't hear anything, or it doesn't go anywhere. Yeah. Nice.
Okay. So as we go up that capacity and competency range, so you have much higher engaged, capable people, we move up to this level 4, which is decide. And so our manager statement here is make a decision, then afterwards, tell me what you did. So make a decision, then tell me what you did. In the first 3 levels, the manager is making the decision. Level 1, the manager's deciding everything and just copy me. Level 2 is thank you for the information. I will make the decision on my own without your input. Level 3, recommendation. Level 4, I am giving you enough authority that go do the things that need to be done and then tell me what you did. And the tell me what you did is important because the manager never wants to be blindsided by someone higher up in the organization asking them a question. Hey, I saw that you guys did X. Can you tell me about that? Oh, I had no idea that my employee did that. I delegated that. No, that's not okay.
Yeah.
You need to know. You need to know. But the important thing here is you are entrusting that employee that you're delegating the task or project to say, you do it. You've shown enough competence and capacity and engagement to be trusted with this level of authority to do X. Go do it. Tell me what's going on. Something I didn't mention yet, but need to. It's assumed in each of these first 4 levels that there's ongoing communication between the manager and the direct report. Delegated doesn't mean I told you once and we never talk about it again. There's ongoing communication. And it would be hard to do any of these things without that ongoing communication that is focused on whatever task or project you're delegating.
That's really key, Mark.
Yeah.
It's key. So many things, and especially this. And can I just put one thing in there? When you allow someone to decide and they make a decision that maybe you wouldn't have made as the manager, how do you back that up?
I think the question I always ask there, is this wrong or different? And putting on my facilitation background for a minute, in the facilitation world, there's a lot of activities that all have different names, all are done slightly differently. But when young facilitators, I keep saying young, when inexperienced facilitators lead something for the first time and see it differently, they're like, oh, you can't do that. Like, well, why not? Like, is it wrong? Is it dangerous? Is it going to injure someone? Well, no, but that's not how I learned it. Most of these things weren't handed down on stone tablets. So that's always the question. And I feel that because I'm a high D. Being in control is important and having that authority. And so when things do something differently than I would have, I have to put my own emotions in check and stop that reaction and go, okay, this isn't how I would have done it. It might be better than how I would have done it. But is it wrong? Is it something that the organization cannot live with? Then if it's wrong, that's part of the delegation process, is learning and growing. And hopefully you're catching that well before it's done because you're in constant communication.
Nice. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah. No, that's a great question. You do not know how many times I've asked myself, is this wrong or different?
That's a great clarifying question too, really, because we get stuck in our boxes of wait, this isn't right. But
and maybe it's my pride showing. I always immediately assume wrong first, and I have to check myself and go, oh wait, this is actually better than what I intended. Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I'm glad I delegated this. I'm being honest. We're all growing and learning. So
I love that.
All right. So the last level that we'll share is level 5, which is own. So the manager statement is, this belongs to you. Now, if there's an emergency, ask for help. This belongs to you. Ask for help if you have an emergency. So you'll know you're successful at ownership in this task or project if as the supervisor, you don't even think about this regularly. And in level 5, you're not necessarily communicating on a regular basis about this task or project, but you're still willing to help if something unexpected comes along, there's a crisis, or coach the employee. And if they ask your opinion, you can give it. But in general, you've moved the primary responsibility to them, and you've really shifted a lot of the accountability to your employee as well. In this case, you don't have the details. So if somebody asks you about this, it's so part of your employee's job that you could be blindsided. But they're only owning it if they've gotten to a point in their capacity and responsibility where they really can own it. And if you have highly engaged, capable people, allowing them to own things is just... It's life-giving. Saying, if we looked at that level 2 unheard statement of, you don't trust me, you don't you don't value my contribution, it's the opposite of this. And there's some assumptions there. But if you have an engaged employee and you're allowing them to own things, it shows your trust in them, and that's 98% of the time a positive thing.
Agreed. Totally agreed. And I'm on the, now I am old, so I'm going to take this into account, but I'm on the more of the own it, because give me a project, let me go, let me do it. Just give me the basics and I'll move on. But I work with some people that are younger, and I wouldn't always say that's the case. Again, how did they come in? Where did they come from? What's the background? How are we grooming them? Mm-hmm. That's all part of that. So yeah, good. I like the way you set this up.
Life is way too short for work to suck. So if you want help to build your team, train your team, or manage your team, we're here. Come see us at workplaysolutions.com. Thanks for listening to the podcast. And is that your chimes again, Rhonda?
I know. I'm just looking. I'm going, I have to take you out of the room. I should go take them out right now.
Yeah. Can we pause to do that?
I love my chimes, but not right now. That should have been a no-brainer on the task list, but it wasn't.